today, so please ask a lot of questions. And without further ado, I'll turn it over to you guys.
Thank you. First of all, thank you for having us. We structured this presentation based on our projects, on our experience. I'm sure you guys, if you're interested, you can go on the internet and find a lot about BIM. You can go to conferences, you can listen to people. What you can't find very often is somebody who will talk from experience on actual projects, stuff that shows you how you solve problems in your projects. Everybody will tell you what they can do, but not many people will tell you what has been done. So we try to keep the practical aspect in this presentation all the time, as well as we'll walk you through the material takeoff and then you need for your project. So first of all, found this slide interesting. I didn't come up with this. I just found it and I thought I'd use it. Why do I show this stuff? Why would you be interested in BIM first of all? Is it because you need it for your school program? Is it because somebody told you so, or is it for different reasons? And I think one of those different reasons is because at one point you will be one of these people. You will be a contractor, or a manufacturer, or an investor, or a designer, or somebody else involved in this workflow. Again, if you Google BIM, you'll find a lot of definitions, all kind of fancy stuff. But really, if you experience it, you find that is a workflow model centric. I find it. You have a model or a number of models. You combine those models, and then you do something with them. And the question is, what do you do with it? And where can you take this model, and how can you use that model? And there's another, trendy discussion on 2D, 3D, 4D, and all kind of these. And I found this slide, and it's kind of explaining what's happening. And most studies, BIM studies, will agree that most people today use BIM in the 3D, maybe 4D component, but very few go above this. And if you wonder what these are, this is probably I explain, and it's a pretty good explanation. In terms of setup, we use a number of software programs and certain hardware configuration to go with that. And we've been talking about providing you with a model, one of our projects, so you can relate to this presentation, but I don't think your computers here would allow you to work effectively with that. In terms of software, we use architectural Revit. Obviously, the model would assume that you have a structural component, mechanical component, electrical component, and you would build different systems with those, right? 3D Max and V-Ray, we use that for renderings, animations, presentation stuff, but also for lead analysis. AQT is quantity takeoff. That's an estimating software, and is really the next level of what we're going to do today in terms of material takeoff. Navisworks has a number of flavors, and really allows for model exploration, as well as some analysis, simulations, coordination. It's a big one. Most people that will talk to you about Navisworks will try to present as the most important the clash detection component, and it is important. But really, the coordination is a big one, and not many people will tell you that that's really important. Buzzsaw is a file sharing and coordination web-based service. And Autodesk 360, I left this at the end because it's pretty much a buzzsaw. It's a web-based buzz, which is in the cloud, in the Autodesk cloud. So it's really powerful. It's something new. I don't know if if you've seen it or not. It allows for some analysis, cloud rendering, you can do renderings. I try some, I'm reserved, but it's probably going to take off. In terms of hardware, we have Revit systems. So everybody on Revit is going to get a Revit system and nothing less than that because they need to be productive. So Intel Core i7 CPU, 3.4 GHz, 32 gigabytes of RAM. That's a very important component, and a good video card. 32 gigabytes of RAM won't speed up your daily work, but will allow you to open large projects. That's the main reason for a lot of RAM. And if you ever want to work with Revit, you may want to find a good system. It's a good formula. If you want to know how much RAM you need, if you take all the models linked in one model and all the DWG files, and you combine the size and you multiply 20 times, that's pretty much how much RAM you need for Revit only. On top of that, you add Windows and whatever else you need, like Microsoft Office and something else. But the point is, the more you can, the more you should get. Another slide that I didn't make, but I like to use, kind of goes over what the presentation today is structured. So we have all the BIM areas that we identified, and we can relate to them as a company with our projects. And everything in here we do, or we are scheduled to do in current projects. So speaking about the practical component of this. If we get started with the combined models, we'll just show you a few things that we do in the office. And we have a site planning department, and they are fully Revit. They do everything in Revit. Let's see if this is going to play. We also do shadow studies in Revit. That's generated from Revit. Practical side, we can calculate the cut fill volume topography in a project. We did that. That's a recent project. It's a retail and residential combined, Queen and Portland exterior perspective. This is a very initial model. It's really in the early stages. Took a little while to build it, obviously. It's not going to be as fast as AutoCAD, but really the benefit is not in the short term, it's on the long term. And really is benefiting the project, the building, the owner if you want. Recently we talked to one of the clients, and he was asking, are you telling me using Revit you are going to be faster and cheaper? And I said, no, I'm not telling you this. This is what you would like to hear, but this is not what I'm telling you. I'm telling you I'm going to be more expensive in the beginning, but this is your building. In the lifetime of the building, you're going to spend less if you're willing to spend more. It's hard to pass that preconceived idea. So with this model, we went to the client, and this is generated in Revit. So once you have a model again, what do you do with it? You start using it, right? And there was quite amazing. See, if you show elevations and plans to executives in a company, maybe they'll understand. Maybe they'll have some good questions, but if you show them this, they'll definitely have really good questions, and they can have a really productive meeting. This is the same building, and this is the structural model. If you want to see it better.
So this I think these alluded to. This was one of our first sort of projects in Revit. And I think you've seen on one of the facades was quite a complex curtain wall system. that typical architects, we draw a nice picture of, well, how we're going to make this work. So using Revit, we were able to actually model up all the HSS components, figure out where the slab edge needed to be cut. Once we showed these drawings and incorporated them into our working drawing set, it actually helped the whole shop drawing process, helped the window trade come on board and propose his details to make the whole system work. So it was actually somewhat painful to get to this point because it was our first project, but in the end it actually worked out quite well.
And then we take this basic building and we present it in a site context so the client understands how this is going to look like. And that's another recent project, Maple Leaf Gardens. And what you see here is the combined model, architectural, structural, and mechanical. And actually this next slide shows you a little bit of how this was done. The green is mechanical and blue is the structural model. And this is a typical 2D layout for Loblaw stores. We do all the stores, all the Loblaw stores. So when we do the store layout, planning, space planning, this is what we come up with. And people involved with this kind of presentation drawings, they know what's happening and they can deal with this. But again, if you take it to an executive to make a decision based on this, he'll have really hard time understanding what's happening. So what we did, we took this model, which is actually the combined model, and we took out mechanical, structural, we left the architectural and the fixturing component. And they actually, the whole discussion, we had a number of boards printed for them. The whole discussion went around this one view because this is what they understand.
Again, this here at Maple Leaf Gardens, very quick to see. Quite a big component of this structure of Maple Leaf Gardens, the renovations were all the stands, all the columns were all integrated into the exterior. So we had to do quite a bit of temporary bracing, shoring. So you're basically shoring up your system, demolishing it, re-supporting it, and then taking down this temporary stuff. So there's quite a bit of clear interferences or clashes that happen between the architectural and the structural system. So this is a very quick and easy way of seeing potential issues and showing it to the client and consultants. So here you can see an actual construction photo from, I'm going to say about 1.5 years ago. You can see on the side all the stands were taken away. You can keep going, V. So you see quite a bit of the reshoring, underpinning, temporary work that needed to be done to keep the exterior walls up while all of this interior work was going on. So it's actually quite complex. All the structure there on the right-hand side is all temporary, that once the floors were put in place, we're going to be taken out.
So at the moment we had this project, we've been well into things, so we were comfortable with such complex projects. And then we get into the interior presentation kind of drawings. And that's one way to present it in Revit. I'm sure you're familiar with this kind of views, and then we take it to a more enhanced level, if you will, and then we can deliver more with that, and that's what we present to the client. And then we can render all the store fixtures, so they understand what they put in the store, how does it look with merchandise on it. This is really a Revit family, and we build about 5,000 of them. We have 2 full-time people building families for about a couple of years, and all of them have information attached to it, so they are schedulable, and really they are the unit that goes in all these models. And everything that's in the building goes down to these fixtures.
We got a question over there.
Yeah.
Right over there.
Yeah, I was wondering why did they go to that level of detail?
This one?
Yeah.
Because they wanted to see it.
Like everything, even the
Not everything.
Okay.
Not everything. we build everything as Revit families, but only some they need to see. Most of them they'll buy based on something existing, right? But if they have custom units and it doesn't exist, they would like to know, how does it look if it's twice as long, twice as high, twice as, give me a eye level view, give me a far away view, all kind of different finishes, different, yeah. And we put, again, all these fixtures in, and they want to see then how the store looks like when everything's in. And they want to see how the store looks like, and they have a couple of exteriors. And then we can do marketing plans. And this is probably a typical marketing unit floor plan, nothing fancy about it. But then because we have the ability to do it, we get into rendering these units. And actually this few that I'm showing to you now, they've been used for marketing. The client used it in the sales office. And then some clients want animations, either for marketing purposes or I don't know what else.
The city purposes, cities, now that there's all this SketchUp and all these 3D programs, they'd like to see more and more, get a better idea of what these buildings look like. Again, most people can read plans, elevations, sections, but when you have a view like this, a fly through, it's much more powerful. So more and more cities are asking for 3D output.
So I'll just stop it because it just goes like that. Alright, that's another type of marketing tool that we provided the client with. Is just an interior residential unit, and you see a few controls in here, and you can use those, or you can use your mouse to just move around and look around at the unit. You can also see that certain fixtures have a link attached to it, and if I click on it, it's going to take me to the manufacturer website and show me what the spec of that appliance. This one takes a while to kick in, but it's a different type of marketing tool. It's still a look around rendering, where you can go around and explore the space, but it's got links to different spaces. So this is going to take me into the washroom, and I can go back into the main space. Again, it's a simple example, but it makes a difference, I guess, when you use it for marketing. I'll get out of the presentation again. And then interactive design options. The question was, why do we render those fixtures? And what I can do is I can show different finishes on a building, or I can show different finishes on a fixture. So presentation-wise, my presentation is enhanced, right? I can overlap and present different finishes on the spot, or I can show it side by side. Unfortunately, this whole view doesn't make the point, but that's the idea. PDF presentations. So we did this for a competition. The model was Revit model, and then we used an animation software. We did a few renderings just to show at the bottom of this presentation panel how this would look like. But then we also included an animation into this PDF. So it's just a PDF. All animating is a PDF. And this is what you get. So I'll let you enjoy a few seconds of this, because we like the result. was done with a program that's called Lumion. It wasn't listed in there, we just start using it, but we like the results. It's very quick, it's very fast, it's almost live rendering, real-time rendering, so you can get a good presentation out of it. And then all the stuff that we build and want to present to the client, we said in the beginning, your Revit file is going to be huge, right? You do your architectural part, you do your structural, you combine them mechanical, you keep adding, you add fixtures, you add lighting, signage, you add all kind of stuff is going to be huge. So at the end of the day, you want the client to see this stuff, because that's why you do it. So you want to share this with them, and we use also standard for that, which is an online sharing system. And for coordination, we use Navisworks, and I'll show you one of our stores. So in Revit, you get another menu if you have Navisworks installed, and that menu will let you export to Navisworks. The result is what you'll see, it's up to 20 times smaller file size, and comes down to an email about file size. So you can email this to a client, or you can post it on Box. It's a previewer. So what they get is the actual 3D model. See, I put the shoes on and I move around. I have preset views in here. If I want him to look at certain things, I can preset these views and he can go look for himself. And we did this with a client that was really difficult. He didn't want to go on bus, or he didn't want to open this program. He says, I didn't get the email because my plugin doesn't work. What kind of, he's against everything. And we said, don't worry, we'll preset everything for you, just click a click and it's gonna go fine for you. So we sent him one of these models, and the second time around he said, don't send preset because I can work myself. He actually picked up this quite well. And you don't really lose information if I select something and I go in the selection tree. I can tell is a refrigerated unit in HMR, the HMR department, and is a 12-foot ON2UM refrigerated case. So keeps the intelligence in there, but it's a really, really lightweight model. I also have an option to enable links, and I'll just go to a case that I know has a spec. So if I click on this link, it will take me to Basa. This is Basa, and takes me to that spec, and I can see the spec of that equipment. So we try to enable this feature for most of the equipment. So when the client goes, explore his model, understands exactly what he's dealing with. Most of the time, again, coordination. What case did you use? Where did you get this case? Who told you to do it? So everything is coming full circle with this link, and they don't need to ask this question.
I have a quick question.
Yes.
So, I'm not sure if you answered this before, but the 3D model renderings you did before of the city, was that all in Revit?
No, the renderings are not in Revit. They are in 3D Mask, in V-Ray. Yeah. V-Ray is actually another add-on to 3D Max. 3D Max comes with Mental Ray. It's a rendering engine. We find that V-Ray gives us a better result. It's not as fast as Mental Ray is not as fast as well, but it's slower than Mental Ray. Results-wise, we prefer it because of the results. You can do a lot of stuff. You can do renderings. Just because you can doesn't mean will. It's going to take a lot of time, and the result is not going to compare with what you see. So if you are going to do it, then you have to make a decision. What am I going to do? I'm going to spend this time producing something that's close to decent, or I'm going to invest a little bit more and do something right on. And speaking of the investment and BIM and this mapping here, the fact that we explored most of these areas, I think gave us more business. It wasn't double your business in terms of employees or profit or anything like that, but gives you stuff that wasn't there before. We didn't do any renderings 5 years ago. Nothing. Now we have 3 full-time people doing that. We didn't do any, obviously, Revit content. We have people that do that. We didn't do clash detection. We didn't do 3D detailing, construction schedule, quantity takeoff, all this stuff. We didn't do it right. But the more you do it, the more you can get people like to see it before they actually give you that business. And for most of what we did, we took the initiative to get into Revit, to build families, to create content, intelligent content schedules and all that stuff. We presented the client and then the client. It was never the other way around. If you go to Autodesk presentations, they'll tell you the owner drives this, and the owner is going to tell you do it. And it never happened to us. We had to go to the owner and present a real good case, and maybe we get it. So in real world, it's a little different. And that's why in the beginning I said this is a model-centric process to me, personally. Autodesk is going to tell you again, the owner is in the middle of this, and then everybody, is driving everything. I think the model really drives everything. You're going to have as much benefit out of this as good as your model is going to be. So it's going to come down to you and how good the model is. If you have a so-so model, then you'll have so-so results. And the owner can change, but the model stays. And again, if we want to be true to what we preach, it really benefits it, will show in time. So who knows who the owner is going to be in 20 years, but the building is going to be there. Analysis, and this is where I wanted to do a little Revit exercise with you guys. This is a preliminary design project where we use massing. In the beginning, you don't really know how your building is going to look like. You play around with massing. You don't really know what you're designing. This is a mixed-use project. It's got a residential component, a retail component, offices, and they're color-coded. If you notice, the building is placed on the side. The shadow is enabled in there. We have a shadow study, but I didn't bring that one. So, how does that work? Yes?
Sorry, what's massing?
Massing is...
It's probably one of the first steps that you start. So something like this, client comes to you with a site, what can I build on? So you start looking at zoning, sort of what's allowed on that site, and then obviously you try and maximize. You want to maximize your return on investment. So this is probably one of the first things, saying, okay, you know what, I'm allowed a floor plate of 800 square meters. This is what I can do, and then you start sort of breaking it down. I can get 4 1-bedrooms, 4 2-bedrooms, and basically it's really just back and forth, seeing what the client can get the most bang for his buck. Everything comes down to money. It's not about design, structure, money. That's what it comes down to. So this is really a first kick at the can, seeing what type of shadows you get, what type of building you can get, and then it sort of develops from there. And that, I think V was touching on at the beginning, your different levels of models, your 1D, 2D, 3D, 4D, and 5D. So this is probably your massing is a 1D, something very basic schematic, and then it develops from there.
And that's the architectural perspective. In terms of Revit, massing is just a 3D shape, really, that you can do. Before we get into this though, so we get into the analysis part of the Revit and BIM aspect of this conversation, but all I presented so far was 3D only, really. It was nothing to do with schedules, construction, and all kind of fancy stuff. And I said in the beginning that most studies agree that right now most companies are doing 3D, maybe some 4D. And again, talking to clients and you know, people in the industry, I noticed that the 3D aspect is really dismissed. Like, oh yeah, you're doing 3D, what else are you doing? Like, this is nothing. And yet we did so many things with 3D, from solving problems to the marketing stuff. So I think that's a very important aspect that I always like to spend some time on, because it's often just dismissed. Like 3D, it's by default 3D. It's not really by default. So I think you can do up to a certain point this exercise with me. If you would like to start a new drawing, then you can do it right along with me. I have massing and site in here, and you guys have.
We have a massing.
And I think in your world, architect and site is where this is pretty much in the same place, same menus, right? This stuff, if you go in architect and site.
Do you want to start a new one, or just working this
I think a new one is better. And we will do an Inplace Mask. Actually, a very interesting point to me. You guys are doing Revit for a while, right? No? No. Excellent. So, how do I present this? Most of the new people in the office are asking me, so where can I go for training? Where can I go websites to find and learn really fast this stuff, right? And I keep telling them, and they believe it's a joke. And it's not. Your best friend is F1, right? I swear to God, it's best friend. Yeah, you don't need to go training. I think you guys are sharp enough to just understand this stuff. It's just very concise, very precise, to the point, what you can do with certain tools. And the only way to learn it is actually to do it. There's no other way. If you go to training, you're going to spend 3 days in a training class. Maybe some people can only learn that way. That's fine. But still, at the end of the day, of the 3 days, you'll be on your own. And you'll have to do something. At that point, you'll still have to do it. So that's the only way to do stuff. Also, if you see how this little tooltips open, they'll also give you a little bit of information on what a certain tool will do. So I'll start by doing an Inplace Mask. We don't need to get fancy on the names. And I have my project set in metric. It's not really important. I'll just create a quick footprint. Right, so once you start create mask, you get into this edit mode, and you have a number of editing tools. So I just chose the rectangle and I created a rectangle. Don't worry about the size and stuff like that, it's not really important. Once you have a rectangle, highlight it, click on it. It's highlighted, right? And then finish mask. Create form, sorry. Solid form, yeah? In here you have create form. There's a drop down menu. Choose solid form. You did this, and you have a 3D mask. If I look in 3D, this is my building, believe it or not. Probably not, but this is my building. Yeah? this finish mask will just end the editing. So if I finish this, now I have my building, right? And we have two levels, default level. What I'll do, I'll copy these levels. I'll copy a few, right? So I'll just select and copy. I'll copy at 3 meters. And actually, I will enable multiple copy, so I can keep doing this as many times as I want. One at a time, but as many times as I want. I stopped at number 8. You guys can go crazy. I'm going to adjust my shape. How do I adjust it? I just click on the form and I have this handles, and it's going to snap to this last level. One thing that is important, not for this exercise but for Revit, I don't think you see it here, but it's quite obvious on your screens. My first two levels, which are the default levels, are blue, and everything else that I copied is black. Yeah? So what's the deal with that? Everything, pretty much everything that you see in blue in Revit is going to take you some place. So if I click on a double click on level 2, it's going to take me to level 2 floor plan. Level 3 doesn't take me anywhere. So if it's black, that means there's no level 3 created. Do I want to do that? Is that a mistake? It's really up to you. If you are certain you're going to have that many floors, then you can enable those floors, make them blue. If it's just early design, concept design, and you have no idea what this is going to end in, then you find with just black one. How do you convert it to a blue one? If you go in the View menu, Floor Plans. So if I go to View Floor Plans, it knows that I created levels from 3 to 8 that don't have floor plans. So it's going to ask me, do you want to create a floor plan for these levels? And I can choose the ones that I want to create floor plans for, or select all of them and say, okay, if I do that, now I have all these floor plans that correspond to those levels. If I go back to my south, everything is blue now. Yeah? So that applies to sections, elevations, levels, callouts, pretty much everything that should lead to another view. So again, in my 3D view, I will select my mask, and I have this contextual menu. Again, contextual menu is something that you don't see unless you have something selected, right? So if I get out of the selection, it's not there. If I select my mask, I have mask floors. And if I say mask floors, I can select where do I want these mask floors. I want them on every single level, right? So I check every single one and say, okay, at this point, my 3D object is sliced at each level, and I start creating, they act like floors. And just to enhance a little bit the view, I'm going to shade this. And at this stage, although I didn't do too much, I just have a footprint which I extruded and I created some floors. I can extract information already from this model. And the first one, the most obvious one, is the areas, the square footages, and has to do with schedules. So if I go in my schedules, which is under the View menu, the first one, schedule quantities. What do I want to schedule? I have a whole list of options, and really in this case you have to scroll down to mask floors, because I created mask floors out of this object. And if I choose mask floors, Then I'm presented with another set of options. What do I want to schedule? And everything in here, in your left-hand side, in the available fields, is, guess what, available fields to schedule. So you can schedule every single one. Really, at this point, I want the level and I want the floor area. And that's all I want. This is my schedule. WT is a shortcut, and it's used for window tile. Everything, single window open is going to be tile in here. ZE is another shortcut that stands for zoom all in all open views. So I got a little bit excited here and just close this down or minimize them, and then WT again, so I get more real estate. What do I see here? So I have all the levels and all the square footages, and if I decide to change my object, I don't know if you noticed, but this number's changed, right? So if I decide to change the footprint, the schedules are updated. It doesn't look like much, but if you do it in AutoCAD, then it starts making sense using Revit. What else can I do with this? Let's call it building. It's not really a building, it's just a concept. One thing that I can do, and I don't think you can right now because that's in my architectural software, is go energy settings. So I can produce some energy analysis, although I only have a box, really on a location, which is really important, and an idea about what my project is about. So I'm just gonna go energy settings and see what I have to provide in order to get some information. Building type office, and I can choose from a number of options. Location, let's just call it, yeah, that's better. And it's gonna ask me for what the ground plane is and all that stuff. What I want to do right now for my clients is, let's assume I have a good idea about the footprint and the number of floors and all that stuff. I want to explore the targeted percentage glazing. And the default is at 40%. I'll leave it at 40%, and I'll say, you know what, at this point, I'll enable the energy model. So Revit will just create the energy model with 40% glazing. And then I'm going to run an energy simulation. This energy simulation is going to be run on the Autodesk website. You have to have a subscription for that. We do have, because it's my software and we have a subscription. I'm guessing most offices have it. In a few minutes, this energy analysis is going to be presented to me in a form that I can read. Let's give it a name. Option 1. 40% glazing. Okay, so that's good. 40% glazing. So it's going to start the energy simulation. I did a few, so I don't know if we have to wait for this. Really, it's not time consuming. When it's done though, it's going to show me a little notification, your energy model is done. If I need to go see the results, I go see the results. And this is what the results look like. This is my option right now, 75% and processing. And I have other models in here. This one and this one. What can I see in one energy analysis? I'm presented with the building performance factors, and then all kind of let's call it information for right now, right? Annual estimated energy use per cost, energy use, fuel, electricity, heating loads, cooling loads, all kind of stuff. This is based on what I presented my options, my energy options with. If I select more than one option and I click compare here, there more options will be compared side by side, and I get to see which one gets, for instance, needs to use more fuel, less energy, all kind of stuff. This is a very early. It's very early in the design process. So what I can get is information. You even see some numbers in terms of cost in here, energy cost. I can go to my client and say, listen, I think if you do this, this is what you're going to end up with. Let's keep it real in here and not believe that that's a number that's going to be, concrete number. Okay, you told me that number. Realistically, this tool is just to compare options and to see which one is better in certain areas. If energy consumption and energy cost is one of my concerns, then I can give you the option that's going to be best in that regard, right? I'm not going to give you the exact number, but I'll tell you which one is going to perform best. If you would like to do that with AutoCAD, I don't think that's going to happen that easy. You can do this quite fast. I don't know, 15 to 20 minutes you can do that. And recently we've been to a presentation and the same process actually was presented for a project in BC, and they did in a day, I believe, 42 options. So when you really need it, you see the value. If you just present it with this possibility, we can do that. Maybe it's going to pick up your interest or not, but when you really need it, it's going to make a difference. A preliminary material takeoff. And I'll just start one of our projects, and I'll show you what we did, and I'll show you how you can get there. And from what I understand, you will be using one of the default Revit projects to try to replicate that, and you'll try to use the same in your project. If you can't understand this, obviously ask questions. If you, at the end of the day, still can get it, or you think you got it, and you go back and something is missing, you can email us, let us know. We'll help you. So this is the project. Is the new training facility for the new Black Cross facility for Toronto Rock. And that's a preliminary estimate for walls. And the way I would like to present this today is by just looking at how this is built. So in this view, and by in this view I mean click inside, I'm going to click inside this schedule view, and I have a number of properties. Everything in Revit is an object, right? So it's going to have some kind of properties. Even if you open it and you don't have anything selected, by default that's the properties of the view, right? And you will see on the left hand side the type of object and its properties. And if I again click inside my schedule and I drag it down, I have a number of options in here for my schedule, right? Fields, filters, sorting, formatting, and appearance. And all this stuff is really the tools that help me build the schedule. Let's see how this is built. I'll start with option number 1. And this is what it is, available fields. Meaning, what can I schedule for walls, right? It says walls. If I want to schedule something else, I'll show you how to get there. Out of these fields, I can choose any and click add, and it will be added as a column in my schedule, right? So that's how I added family and type, area, and cost. There is no such thing as material cost. That's a made-up column because I need it. I think I need the total cost of that material. So for that reason, If I don't have it but I need it, I can create a calculated value. Yeah? This is it right there. And if I click on it, I'm presented with something like this. I can define it. Let's look at this material cost because I can also edit. So what is it? Is a formula which will list the type currency, and the formula is area multiplied by cost divided by 1 square meter, so it evens with the area and I only get the cost. So I'm going to have another column which will be populated when the cost and the area will be populated. If I go on the second tab, which is the filter tab, this one here, that's what I'm presented with. I can get straight to this tab by clicking on the filter, edit here, right? Same with every other tab. Sorting, formatting, appearance, you can get straight to it here. So let's go to sorting and grouping, and I notice that I have sorted by family and type, right? So I want all similar family and types in name to be sorted and grouped together. And I also notice I have itemized every instance if I have to list every single one of them, or I can uncheck that. If I uncheck, only once will be listed in the schedule, and that's how I had it presented here. Right? I have only one basic wall, PW 1.1 concrete block. I also have enabled grand totals. That will take care of these values. It's gonna show at the end grand totals. Next tab, formatting. I have a little bit of control on the formatting, and the most interesting things are area in here, because I need to calculate the total area and the total material cost. I need the total cost. The cost is not going to need the total because that one applies per unit, per square foot, per square cubic foot or cubic meter or whatever the unit is. Also, for the cost, I would like it to show with 2 decimal places and with a $sign. By default, this is checked, and it's up to the project settings, although this is currency. But if I want to refine that, I'll uncheck. This is kind of an override for the project settings, and then I can choose different options in here. And if I need actually to use digit grouping to define thousands, comma, then I can enable this one. Appearance is there. Doesn't give you too many options. Doesn't let you present a fancy looking table, but you can address certain things like grid lines, textile, height, stuff like that. It's not really flexible. It's not as flexible as AutoCAD. It's not as flexible as Excel, anything else, but it's there. So, and you notice it added this comment here. How do we get here? Because that's the question. It's all good and yeah. Let's go on the View menu, and then in the schedules we have Schedule Quantities. Let's just choose that option. So we'll schedule walls. So in the category, this is when we use what to schedule. Let's call it wall schedule, although we know it's a preliminary wall schedule. We schedule building component, that's a default, and we're going to leave that there. This one here. And we hit OK, and we are in known territory now. We've seen this before. Yeah. So, what did we see here? What do we notice? Walls. Select available fields from walls, because this is what I've selected, right? I want to schedule walls, it's going to be here. Something really important that you may want to use in real life, include elements and link files. Very important. I don't think it's the case in your project, but it's good to remember that. I'm going to take the family and type and add it here. I also need to do area. Generally speaking, low scheduling is going to go around areas, right? You need the area. That's how you're going to price that. So you need the area. You also need the cost. And we know the total cost is not there, so I'm going to need to define a calculated value. I'm going to need to define that. And let's say, I'll call it total material cost. It is a formula. In the type drop down, I'll use currency because I know it's a dollar figure. And then in the formula, you can type. And I believe starting with 2012, you can actually choose fields because it's very strict in terms of uppercase, lowercase. If you mistype, that's even worse, right? So instead of typing, which you can go here and choose from the fields that you can use in this formula. So area, and then multiplied with the cost, divided by 1. That 1 is going to take away the square meter. It's basically divided by 1 square meter. Right? Area is going to be square meter, cost is going to be dollars, divided by 1 square meter, so I'm left with the cost. Let's do it step by step so we see what's happening. Let's not just go through the whole thing, let's just click OK now and see what we get. It's a very long list of family types, area, cost, and total material. For the cost, you guys don't have anything, but we have it because we input the cost in here for each wall. And if you provide a cost of a wall, all the instances of that wall will take that cost. So I would actually add some cost in there. Before we do that, let's sort. So you will see that if you input a cost, it's going to go through the whole thing, right? So obviously I have most of the stuff that I need, but it's not final. I have to edit this, right? I have to keep working. So in the sorting grouping, I would like to sort by family and type. Yeah. So let's do that. Now everything is grouped. At this point you can add, you have the areas and you can add some cost. I would actually say add some cost in the schedule, see how that works. Don't worry about the actual values. You will be presented with a dialog box saying this will be applied to all the instances of this wall, which you actually want. Yeah. So now that we have some cost information, you'll be adding that, so that's okay. You won't have any issues with that. Let's go back to sorting and grouping. Yeah? We said we don't want every instance itemized. You only want bulkhead 300 once, and then the cost per unit, and then the area and the total cost. So we want to disable this itemized in every instance. Right? Let's see what happens. Because I promise you, going through this exercise yourselves, you'll have to do this step by step so you understand what the differences will be when you create the schedule. If you click OK, all of a sudden there's some issues in here. Oh my god, I lost stuff, right? I have some stuff, but most of it I lost. Where is it? I don't know. Let's go back to sorting grouping. In formatting, we said for the area, we would like to calculate the totals. Right? And now my area is listed. Basically what happened, let's take this away. Let's take this area total away. Where you see an area value now, that means I have only one instance of that wall. And I know the area, and that's the area. Everything else is grouped, and I have different area values. I don't know which one to list, so I'm not going to list any. But if I say for the area, just show me the total, it's going to show me that one value. Kind of makes sense? Kind of. Formatting, area, totals. Same applies for total material cost. Okay, it's getting closer. It's getting closer. What else do I want? Roughly in your schedule, you need to go in formatting, and for the cost, you need to field format to show currency. Right now, I want to overwrite this to show 2 decimal places and to show the dollar sign, and to use digit grouping. Same for total material cost. Field format, I want this stuff plus use digit grouping. Let's see the result. This is the result. Would be nice if at the end, at the very bottom area of this table, I would get a total, so I know how much money I'm spending on walls. So I go edit again, and in sorting grouping, I would like grand totals. And I have options. I want to go with title and totals. So at this point, I have my schedule, which should be exactly the same as the other. However, I don't think this kind of schedule is what you take in a project and go to the procurement and say, buy this for me. I really don't. Some of the walls would need to be priced based on the cubic volume, concrete stuff. Why do you give me the area for? So there's some refinement to the schedules. Not very often. I mentioned in the beginning of this this subject that is a few ways to do material takeoff. So one of them is schedule quantities. The other one is material takeoff. That one gives you components of each wall. We find that in real life that doesn't happen very often. Like nobody wants to know how much insulation you want to buy. No, that's going to be a wall system. You buy it, square footage, done. So I understand the capability of material takeoff, not really used. You'll be required to use it, maybe. Not that often, no. I would like to briefly show you Autodesk quantity takeoff. This is an estimating software that's Autodesk based. Works with the model, and it's geared toward real estimating jobs. You can choose more options. So let's give it a go. See if that explains what I'm saying. It's maybe the most resource-intensive program in this Autodesk building suite. I crashed a few times trying to do this. Okay. So what I did in Revit, I exported my model in DXF. And if you go in your application menu, drop down, export, DXF, that's how you export it. Right? It so happened that the last view saved was this one, but really I prefer a 3D view. So I can choose to export one view, which is my 3D view of the entire model, or I can export all the views in the model. Is it useful to export all the views? It is useful because as you select entities in your objects in your model, building components in your model, they'll be highlighted in class. You can actually show the views, the sheets that show that component. Again, it's not the subject, it's not the object of this presentation today, but keep in mind it is possible. So if I go to my model, I have it grouped by type of objects. And I can take any of these type of objects and take it off and see what's happening. Let's take the walls. Takes a little while to right click because again it's resource intensive. and we'll take off all the walls. It's quite quick. After you can select and right click, it's a 3-step process. But at the end of this, so you can take off groups of elements, just one or the entire building, right? I selected the walls because we've seen the walls before, but you can take off the entire model right here. That's going to take a little while, and let's see what the takeoff resulted in. So I have these walls. Take off. And they are grouped like this. Basic wall. They are color coded, and if you click on one of these walls in the model, it will be selected in that color, highlighted in that color. This is not based on a spec, but we use a CSI 48, so you can drag any of this group in the right spec area. And this is what I was talking about. In here, you can actually define the type of takeoff that you want to do. So if this is an exterior wall and area is what you are interested in, that's fine. If it's a foundation and it's concrete, then maybe this one is volume. If it's a door, then count is going to be. If it's a railing, linear footage, right? So I'm changing this as needed. And then this is my workbook. In my workbook, I can assign cost to this wall. Right?
Sure.
I have material cost, and I can assign unit cost, meaning square foot cost. But I can also add labor cost, and I can also add subcontractor cost, and I can also add equipment cost if more than just the material is needed. So this is real, it's way closer to the actual estimating job. At the end of the day, after I input all the unit cost, I can actually create a report. And my report will take all the walls and will report groups. I need a description, I need quantity, I need material cost, and I can choose and customize this report as needed. Number pages, all that fancy stuff, create report. And when the report is done, it's going to crash. But if it wasn't, you would have a report that you can export to PDF, Excel, Crystal reports, or any other estimating software. So you can stop with the estimating job at this level, or you can take it to another level if you want. What we need to do right now is to just provide the clients with the quantities, and we just export the Excel and give it to them. Detailing model. Something else that we do, details, and Steve, if you want to get into this view.
So this is, again, I think I was explaining to a few guys over there, we're building the model to suit our needs. So, you know, in theory, everything should be 3D, but we've got quite a bit of standard details, this being a window wall spandrel system on a residential condo. So typically what we do, we'll do cuts through the model, and then actually just overlay our standard details, tweak them as needed, and then hide the model behind, again, so that we can use our details that we've developed over the years. Similar in a, section details are a little easier because they are more standard. Plan details are sort of project specific, so there's a little bit more work involved here. A Fanco unit up against an exterior wall, precast condition, again, window wall condition. Again, because we have the capabilities of doing 3D, this was used very early on in a project here to show the actual window detail, because the city didn't quite understand how this spandrel band was going to look. This was a retrofit, so the city wanted to make sure that the building looked we didn't change the look too much, so this was actually used to discuss with them. This again was that a detail that was developed at Maple Leaf Gardens, the earlier 3D view that we did, where we had the cross bracing sort of punching through. These were all the components that were developed with the steel guys. You've got your loads and all your structural details in there.
Interactive details. Again, this is more of a presentation kind of tool. This is an example of a F detail. We call F details fixturing details when we need to detail the fixtures using the stores. And this is based on a 3D model, Revit 3D model. And when we send it to the client, we like to include this kind of the option, if you will, so the client can look at this fixture in a totally different way. This is because we have it in Revit and we can. What else? Fabrication. Really quickly, I'll walk you through this. I won't open Revit anymore, but I was about to show you a signage family. It's just a generic model shaped to show store signage. Apparently nothing fancy, but this is what we produce with that. So this is key plans, otherwise produced with Photoshop and all that stuff. And really the benefit of this is not when you create them, take the time to create the families or these annotations, but when you need to change and update, this is where you see the benefit. This is typical elevations for decor and signage, and that's, again, an elevation with a close-up. We also coordinate with clients in 3D perspective views, and if needed, we do this kind of quick walkthrough so they understand what they're dealing with. This is the more interesting part to me, at least. This is the scheduling, and yeah, this is the entire schedule, you know, on how many colors that we present. And we have the description of the sign, the name of the sign, the description, material specifics, size, count, which is important for the cost, for the estimating the job, and suppliers. And we provide the client with this schedule, and the client will take it and coordinate with the manufacturers. But when I said BIM to fabrication, I didn't mean coordination, client versus fabrication. I meant exporting from Revit your 3D model so you can 3D print or manufacture with the CNC. This is, at least to me, very exciting ongoing project right now. Facility management, again, really quick through this. This is a typical area layout that we produced before with AutoCAD, actually with Architectural Desktop. It is quite a pain to just update this, but with Revit it's really easy. You see all the color coding and all the area takeoffs and all that stuff by department. And then, again, content families, we build thousands of this. Every single new equipment is built in Revit, and all this stuff, this green stuff that you see here, that's the power connection, that is the gas line, and this is drains. So all that stuff is scheduled in something that we call points of connections, and they understand the power, the engineering requirements for this equipment based on the location, based on count, based on many things. And then we produce, this is a fixturing project. This is a typical floor plan for fixtures. It's color coded by department. Every single thing that you see here is Revit, and all the color stuff is one of those families. And the equipment schedules that are really the benefit of all this exercise are this: the equipment schedule, refrigeration schedule, shelving schedule. They get number of equipments. They get linear footage of shelving, and at any given point in time, they know they can put this information up. How many of this equipment I have in each location in Ontario. It's all there. clash detection. We'll end with this. I really wanted to show you this. So this is Navisworks Manage. Comes with as a part of Aura's building suite, which has a few flavors, but that's not really important. And the clash detector is really the most interesting feature of this software. I'll try to define a really quick clash test. So this is the clash detector. That will actually take all my screen. Has a different resolution. But what I have to do first is to define, you see, in these two panes, I'm defining the groups that I will check the clash. So, in the find items, I'll find all the, in this file, I'll find all the items with the name containing, let's say, steel. Match case not important, find all. And then I manage my selection sets and I'll create one which is called steel. Going back in my items, I can find all the items that are included in ventilation systems. And I'll find all, and then I'll add this to ventilation. And I keep going with that, right? I can do that for everything. In my stores, I'll do signage, I'll do fixturing, I'll do refrigeration line, all kind of crazy stuff that I know I have problems with. And in my selection panes, I go to selection sets, that means. And I'm going to do steel versus ventilation. I have to be careful to uncheck the self-intersect. And somewhere in here, I have to define the clash type. I'm going to do hard detection, hard collision, and the tolerance is going to be 4 millimeters. And I'm going to run the test. Hopefully I get some clashes. Hopefully it is right, because I got all kind of stuff in here. How many? 48. And if I highlight some of them, it will show me what exactly is the problem, where the clashes appear, right? One selection is highlighted in one color, the other set is in a different color, and everything else is wireframe, so you can see the clash. Then you can assign the status to active, reviewed, approved. You have to review it with your engineers, with the mechanical, with the structural engineers, whomever is involved in these clashes, get it solved and get it done. And that's really the important part of this clash detection. This is actually even more important because it shows you a study done in 2007 in the States, and being done in 2007 in the States is as good as being done this year in Canada. It shows 10 projects with different scopes and different budgets and different level of BIM involvement, and then it shows you the return of investment. And talking to some people, they said this is a little bit crazy what is shown in there, because it's between 140% and about 40,000%, right? And everybody does what you're doing, like laughing and no, that's not going to happen, right? Reality is probably the truth is somewhere in between, but even so, I'm going to go with the lowest number, and I say if I get 140% return of investment, then it's worth it. Anything over that, who doesn't want to? And of course, the spread is based on the scope, and take that with a grain of salt, but no. And that's something else that I would like to end with. This is the level of engagement, and I said in the beginning, this is a model-centric workflow. You have a model, and the only question is to me, what do you do with it? And level of engagement describes exactly how this can be successful or not. The more people you get involved in it, the more you do with your model, because you have it anyways, the more return of investment you get. And you know, there's a lot of skeptics out there, but once again, we speak from experience. We're not here to just show you what can be done, quickly flip a book and find something that, yeah, told you so, right? This is real stuff. And this is probably what you guys are preparing for. So with that, I would like to thank you for attention today, for having us. And remember, this is your homework. Yeah. I'm waiting, looking forward to your emails. Thank you again.
On behalf of U of T and the whole class and myself, really appreciate it. You did a wonderful job taking your time and spending all that time preparing and coming here. I really appreciate it, and we look forward to seeing you next year.